The Nigerian Economic Summit comes to an end today in Abuja, Nigeria's Federal Capital Territory. To wrap up activities for this year's summit today, there will be a keynote address titled From Bricks to Mint, the Centrality of Education and Learning to Nation Building and Economic Development by Jim O'Neill, a former chairman of Goldman Sachs Assets Management. Today's session will also feature some state governors who are expected to discuss and prefer solutions to some of the issues raised by participants at this year's summit. The second session of the summit yesterday focused on education in economic development. Our correspondent, Olumide Macaulay, reports.
The Honorable Minister.
How about an encore? Day one of the program was described as a resounding success, and day two had different speakers but the same theme: education and its importance to economic development in Nigeria.
In terms of access to education, we unfortunately happen to be one country contributing some 30 to 40% of children who should be in school who are out of school. That's a piece of data for you. In terms of rate of transition, that generally less than 50% of those who start off school, whether at the primary level or at the secondary level, transit to the next level in education. They fall through the cracks, it's basically.
Number one, what? Character. Character first, then competencies. If you start with competency, you are in trouble. Because if you start by saying, I want the best IT man in my company, yes, he can do everything. He can do Oracle, he can do Microsoft, he can do somersault, everything. But if you're not careful, you are hiring a thief. Because when you are not looking, he's stealing. So character comes first, then competency, and then thirdly, chemistry. Can he work with others?
The platform, a meeting point for public-private sector cooperation, inevitably discusses the solutions as well as the challenges.
We are graduating kids who cannot read and write. Why is that so? Because the people running the system are corrupt. There is no way you can deal with this question of education and access and equity without getting down to the question of corruption.
Spend money on our children, spend money on our citizens, educate our people. Let us have outstanding men and women that can effectively grow the economy of Nigeria by spending on education.
That was the very idea behind the Nigerian Economic Summit. Established back in 1993 in the NESG-led interim administration to foster open and continuous dialogue for progress in economic development.
We need to begin to bring into the fold of advocacy for education, or bringing people to the forefront of education, our traditional and religious leaders.
Capitalize on the mothers, capitalize on the children, capitalize on the female teachers to make sure that we make a proper advocacy outcry on the importance of education, and most importantly, long-term importance of education, which these women or these communities completely lack.
Doubtless, the conversation on education's importance to Nigeria's economic development will continue in days, months, even years to come. But as espoused by some speakers and delegates here at this gathering, it is a right of every Nigerian to have access to quality education.
The fastest way to do a catching up now is to make early child care education, put it on the front burner of the education system. The public sector and the private sector must work together in the kind of program. We put together a program called the Vocational Enterprise Institutions.
Therefore, it may not be an easy task ending the rot in the education sector. But if the words of the Vice President, Namadi Sambo, is anything to go by, which is that the presidency will pay attention to the outcome of this summit, then of course, the journey to a more promising sector has just begun. Olumide Macaulay, Channels Television News.